Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of War Thunder again, and basically talk about a problem that we will probably face fairly soon. So I kinda already did some videos talking about it, but I wanted to put a point to the big gap that we might see in performance of aircraft, or not even in performance, because these aircraft will be able to compete with the more advanced ones, but there will be a gap nonetheless there. And people need to get this line of thinking on their heads, because if not, they will get frustrated of what is to come. There are some options that are already discussed, and I might even do another video talking specifically about the options that Gaijin might have in additions, but the main thing is the gap in technology between the early 80s that we are right now with the aircraft that we have to the late 90s 4+ and later 4++ generation aircraft. We are going to have a gap in some nations. Beyond the US and USSR, mainly, other nations will have better stuff as well, but you can even maybe classify it as three types of nations. We have the nations that will have every single type of vehicle throughout any era of development, which is basically the US and USSR. Then we will have some nations that will also have some middle grounds, but it will have less versions to be added, or overall just less aircraft, which is, I think, a big one is the Japanese tech tree, the Chinese tech tree, the Israeli tech trees. These tech trees, for now at least, they can receive advanced 4th generation aircraft from the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, before we get to the 4+, with the F-15, with some Sukhois and others, but they're still not on par with the amount of variants and stuff that can be added with the US and USSR, right? And then we have the leftovers, the third type of nation that we have that probably will have to do this jump. What is this jump? Well, Germany is one very big example. The UK is even a bigger one, but let's talk about Germany first as an example. The Germans, they have the MiG-29. It is a 912A, which was developed throughout the 80s as an export model of the 912, which the first one rolled out of production around 1979, 1980 for testing and stuff, entered in service in the Soviet Army, in the Soviet Air Force during the early 80s, 1983 more or less. So it is an aircraft that it is a late 70s design with introduction of early 80s, right? And then there's nothing. There's basically nothing more comparable or better than the MiG-29 to be added for the Germans until the Eurofighter is added. So there is a gap there for like almost 20 years in technology, or at least like 10-15 years in technology, that the Germans basically don't have anything. There is a bigger even example with the Tornado. The Tornado is the UK, sorry, because the Tornado is basically the last aircraft that we can get before we get the Eurofighter as well. And the Tornado, as you know, it has less performance than a MiG-29. So yes, of course, we can have more advanced versions of the Tornado that has better missiles and better to ground, but overall the performance of the aircraft will not, it's never going to be the best thing out there, right? So there's all these nations, these minor nations, if you will, or smaller nations, that will have this gap. And as I said, there is many ways that Gaijin can actually fix that. One of them is forgetting about heavy fighters like the F-15 and Su-27 and kind of jump to the 4+ generation from the generation that we have right now. Then everybody would have something like this, and if something like an F-15 and Su-27 is added later, it wouldn't matter too much because everybody already got something that it's competitive, right? But if they don't do that, if they actually go in the way that they seem to be going, which is basically adding stuff throughout the years, right? Or increasing the performance slowly, we probably will see the first variants of the F-15 fairly soon. Later variants of the F-15, maybe an Su-27 and stuff like that, without these nations having anything. And beyond minor changes in some of the weapon systems, like adding the AIM-9M, maybe adding a new version of the AIM-7, or maybe even a big change like adding the Fox 3s like the AIM-120s and R-77, it would still mean that these nations would be in the back foot. They would still have less performance and be maybe probably in a smaller BR than the top tiers, especially of the USSR and the US. So it's something that we kinda need to cope, because there's basically no aircraft there. There are nations that can be dealt with. For example, the Italians, there is this kind of confirmation that was going around that the Romanians and Hungarians are coming, something along those lines are coming for as a Subtree, right? And I mean, Subtrees can actually save these nations with the addition of some aircraft. But even then, people will get mad. Because, for example, in the Italy's case, we have the ADF. There is basically nothing else that can be added that it is better than the ADF. You know, we have the Tornado ADV that's probably going to be added, but it's not going to be better than the ADF in general, right? And then, basically that's it. And then we have the Eurofighter. And that's a big gap, right? So the Romanians, the Hungarians, they used MiGs, for example. They used the MiG-29s. They used even improved versions of it, modified after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Especially the Romanians, I think they were messing around with the sniper modification, but I don't think he ever went through with it. But still, we have some other options there. But still, a lot of people would get mad because it's a MiG-29 in the Italian factory, right? The Swedish, I mean, Swedish can have the F-18, but is the F-18 being added together with the US? You know, the Swedish, I mean, with the Finnish Tech 3, right, Subtree, it can be added as well. How they will add that? We will add probably for the US, then for them. So there is some ways of going around here and there, but there will be a gap if things go along the lines that they're going right now, in my opinion. Still, it doesn't mean that we need this gap to be filled at all, you know? The F-15, the F-16, the MiG-29As, and all other aircraft that these minor quote-unquote nations are using, they are very much comparable and very much competitive, even to a slightly lower degree, to the more advanced or heavy fighters of the 80s and early 90s, right? But still, I think it's a matter of just, it's a problem. And people need to understand that the problem will be there. There is not much else that we can do. The aircraft will be better than others, in the sense of some nations will have better stuff than others, just like it happened right now, and people will get mad. So brace yourself, I think, a little bit, because we will be in an era that we might see an era of people complaining a lot again, of France not having anything new for like 1 year, the UK especially, I mean the British are just the main affected in this, but many other nations, they will feel like they are left out when they are fighting with an ADV against Su-27s and F-15s, I think. And it's a problem. I don't know how they can deal with it. I said there is many options. One of them is adding straight to the late 90s, or I don't know, just forgetting about heavy fighters for now. You know, there are some options there, Subtrees, but it is a problem that I think we are moving towards it very quickly, and I think we will see major changes during this year that will affect that. But anyway, let me know in the comments if you agree that there is a gap in the future, and how would it be to actually fix that. And please don't say like, oh, now a certain nation needs better stuff than the others. No, nobody needs better stuff, okay? Stuff needs to be balanced. The US doesn't need a super fighter F-22 right now just because the Soviets are better, and the, you know, other way around as well. We need balancing, and also not only balancing, but also add additions of new stuff, but in a balanced way. you know. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about it. And I see you guys on the next one. Subscribe and bye guys. See you.